Hey everybody, this is Perch, and there's a comic out today called Death Metal: The Last Stories of the DC Universe. And inside this comic are a lot of kind of final moments. It's the calm before the storm being this final giant battle with the Batman who laughs, who's the big bad, the threat of Death Metal at this point. The heroes are assembling to kind of say their goodbyes or kind of come up with their final strategies, and it's the breather. In a movie, this would be where kind of big secrets are revealed right before we charge into battle. So what's not as clear is how much this story matters. And what I mean by that is, of course, everything matters from a standpoint of you read it, you enjoy it, cool, it matters. But in the sense of, are the things that are revealed in this issue going to carry forward into the DC universe in 2021, 2022, and beyond? We don't know that. So the biggest story, and so spoilers here for this comic, and this isn't a review of the comic, it's just more of a review of the news. And it's one of those cases where here are the things to pay attention to, and I'll kind of give you my feeling of whether they're going to stick or not. So the biggest one comes probably from a Cecil Castellucci, and this is a story really involving Nightwing and Barbara Gordon. So this is what I would call the definition of a fan service story. So we get a bit of Titans kind of commentary and everything else, and then we come to a heartfelt conversation between Nightwing and Barbara Gordon. So Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon have a little conversation. They talk about their complicated relationship. They flirt and they confess feelings to each other, and basically Batman, who is a zombie at this point, Batman gets kind of tired of their talk and says, "You're married," and basically marries them. He has no authority to marry anybody, but he's Batman and the world's ending, so why not? He basically marries them. And this is fan service. This is absolutely nothing more or less than fan service. There's even a line in there which is I think in many ways it's the comic writers do not understand marriage. So it is they both get married, but then like two panels later, they agree that the marriage will be annulled if they live, which we know they're living. We've seen them show up in Future State and other things. And then Dick makes kind of a cheeky, hey, if it's annulled, I'll win you back kind of comment. So it's like you're married for one night. What we don't see in the comic is the consummation of that marriage. So, but again, it's not a marriage. It's an unofficial nonsense marriage by Batman. And so this is getting a lot of news, kind of pushing around the internet and all the rest. What's the likelihood of this being an ongoing story? Close to zero. I think they're going to continue to flirt back and forth with will they, won't they, and it will be this kind of on again, off again relationship like it's been for the last 5 years or so. But that's probably the big news. They're married, but not really. So who knows? Maybe, by the way, in all my predictions here, we get to the end of Death Metal and they just decide to stick with this kind of stuff, but it doesn't feel like it. The next bit is really along, again, sticking with Barbara Gordon. She makes the comment that even if they win and they survive, the implant that's been allowing her to walk is failing. And now this is a storyline that is likely to continue well past Death Metal into 2021. We know that that Barbara Gordon is stepping out of the role of Batgirl, at least to some extent. We've seen this bit again by Cecil Castellucci that she's going to become more of an activist, get into politics, and that's fun. And then probably be a mentor, Oracle style, with Spoiler and Orphan, who are looking to become the new, Batgirls in the new series. So, how likely is this to quickly happen? I don't know. I think DC is flirting back and forth with the idea of putting her back in the wheelchair and telling the handy-capable story in their comics. I don't think it's going to be a fast path to get there, and I think DC is going to want to leave the door open for her being able to be in both spots. So maybe they'll have comics where she's sitting more. I don't know, but they have been setting up and teeing up this idea that the implants will fail and eventually she'll be back into a wheelchair. But it's hard to really buy that they're going to go all in on this path, unless, and we haven't heard it yet or seen it yet, we start to get announcements that Warner Media is going to be doing an Oracle where she's in the chair. And then, it's all over at that point. The next bit is, sticking on kind of the marriage theme for the moment. We get a brief tease, and this again fits into fan service, and it also feels like something that is not really going to continue forward into the comics, but it would be something they're just going to continually want to tease. And that is the relationship between Green Arrow and Black Canary, Oliver Queen, Diana Lance. And they are basically that Green Arrow is thinking about proposing, but she doesn't want to be proposed to, and with them facing imminent death. But we do get the reveal that he was hiding an engagement ring in one of his pouches, and he intended to propose. So this again feels like a case of them dragging it out back and forth, and a lot of this comic, by the way, just as an aside, feels like fan service for some long-running plots that have been going on. The other piece that is out of this that teases, I think, and this one is one where I think it is going to stick to some extent. We do see Hal Jordan and Sinestro team up, and Sinestro taking the Green Lantern power ring and getting that. And the two kind of fly off together. Sinestro makes a comment that he'd forgotten how it felt not to be afraid. And they fly off together to kind of, enjoy the skies, but also that the two are going to be a team kind of fighting this big epic fight. So why I think this moment's going to stick for a few reasons. One, we've heard the Green Lantern book is likely to focus more on John Stewart, is not going to deprioritize Hal Jordan to some extent. Hal Jordan may show up in some different comic, but also I think the movies and Warner Media and everything, they're going to want to tell more of the Sinestro as a Green Lantern story before he turns, into a Yellow Lantern. I think they're going to want to delve a little bit more into that. In fact, I think the Green Lantern show we've heard will deal with Sinestro as a Green Lantern member. So I think that they're going to have him stick in this status quo at least for a little while, so that we get more of more alignment between what they're doing in the movies and what they're doing in the comics. Invariably, Sinestro will go back to the Yellow Ring, but I think this is going to be a moment that I suspect will stick, and that this will be something that will continue. Again, who knows? I have not talked to Jeffrey Thorne about it, but it feels like at least a little bit of alignment that they're trying to go with there. Then two more items. The first one is that we do get what is more of awkward. I mean, this is a case where the Wally West murders everybody in Heroes in Crisis bit. There's just no way. I've come to believe that in the comics, there's no way you can touch on this moment without it feeling super awkward and bad. It does not. It's just such a bad turn for the character that every time they deal with it, it brings back a lot of angry feelings. It brings back a lot of. I haven't met anybody who's like, yes, I loved what they did to Wally in Heroes in Crisis. That was a great book and great outcome, and everybody benefited from it. I've never heard anyone say that. So I think, I guess Tom King, but other than that. So in this comic, we do get the brief return of Speedy. He shows up and he's a zombie. So Roy shows up and as a zombie with a baseball cap, and he kind of tips his hat to Wally as if to say, "Hey, I forgive you for killing me off." We do get a bit of a Titans reunion where Wally is hanging out with Aqualad and Donna Troy, and then also Zombie Roy. So, but reading this scene, again, this is kind of the opposite of fan service. This is by Joshua Williamson. He's trying to make the best he can out of it. I guess it's Joshua Williamson, James Tynion, and Scott Snyder, which, by the way, the fact that those three are working together, I do believe that Joshua Williamson has some bigger things he's definitely slated for as the title relaunches. But now I'm starting to think Joshua Williamson on some level of Titans book beyond what they're doing at Titans Academy might be that angle, but who knows? Anyway, even though they're trying to do kind of some redemption and some fan service back for Wally and Roy in that whole situation, the fact that you got Zombie Roy in there, you've got Awkward Wally in there, that's a case where you're better off doing nothing, I think, because it just doesn't work. Finally, and this is probably the big moment that will slip by, and this may be something, maybe nothing, is that Aquaman spends some time talking about the nature of life and death, and what he means to the world, and basically does a goodbye to his brand new daughter Andy, and that he's basically saying goodbye to the world. And it absolutely feels, in these big events, these big comic book events, you always have a death, like a death that they're going to try and stick with for a while. And it feels like Aquaman is that death. As far as we know, there's not an Aquaman show being teed up. I think if there were, there's Jackson Hyde, and there's Andy, who's Aqualass. I think that there's other characters they might want to run with there, and so it's curious. Now that said, there is Aquaman 2 on the horizon, the movie with Jason Momoa, but that could be a ways off still, and it feels like that may be the death we get in this series. So I feel like that Aquaman probably race to the top of the character who's going to die in this event, and then we'll have, in about a year and a half time, we'll have a resurrection event that can go on in time for the Jason Momoa movie. But there's no short-term Aquaman media appearances coming, so it feels like that's the one they're going to position. I may be overthinking this, but the idea that they devote a lot of pages to Aquaman, Arthur Curry, saying goodbye to his daughter felt ominous, I'll just say. But anyway, this is kind of the last gasp in many ways of Death Metal before we get into the final issues, and it's all coming to a close at this point. This is all from Death Metal, the last stories of the DC Universe, a handful of stories in there by a handful of writers, all trying to, again, it really feels like a lot of fan service, and that's not a bad thing. A little fan service will go a long way, especially in these times, but that's what we've got. Hey, what did you think? Did you like this issue, not like this issue? Let me know in the comments below. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. Most importantly, and as always, thanks for listening.